You've been told all your life that money comes from effort, from struggle, from long nights, from being smart, from luck. But somewhere inside, that story never felt right, because you've seen people work hard their entire lives and still feel poor, and others with no clear reason attract everything effortlessly. You've tried to understand it, the system, the market, the timing, but deep down, you've always sensed that something else is moving the strings, something unseen. And tonight, for the first time, you're going to look directly at it. Take a breath, because after this moment, you'll never look at money the same way again. You think wealth is built, but what if it's remembered? What if the version of you who already has everything is not somewhere far away, but right here, waiting for you to notice them? You've been living as if wealth is a destination, a place you reach someday. But the truth is sharper, simpler, and far more dangerous. You are never moving toward wealth. You are always creating it. The thoughts that pass quietly through your mind while you shower, while you drive, while you worry, those aren't harmless. They are blueprints. They build the invisible structure of your financial life. You say, "I can't afford this." And life answers, "Yes, you can't." You say, "I'll be rich someday." And life whispers back, "Someday, not now." But the moment you dare to say, "I am rich," even when it feels like a lie, something shifts. Because in that moment, you stop waiting, you stop hoping, you start being. And being is the language the universe listens to. You've always felt that quiet frustration, that gap between what you want and what you see. You tell yourself, "I believe," but deep down a small voice replies, "Not yet." And that small voice is what's been holding everything in place. Neville Goddard once said, "You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are." And that's the secret most people never face. You don't need to become a millionaire. You only need to stop being the version of yourself that isn't. So tonight, you begin again. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and everything you touch turns into opportunity, not luck, alignment. You feel guided, calm, clear. You make decisions not from fear, but from knowing. Money flows in strange, almost magical ways because your inner state allows it. That's not fantasy. That's law. And yet right now, your logical mind is resisting. You're thinking, "It can't be that simple." But listen carefully. That resistance is the sound of your old self dying. You've been worshipping how. You've been trying to figure it out. But you don't need to know how. You only need to become the one for whom wealth is normal. Because every version of you already exists. The poor you, the rich you, the peaceful you, the worried you. They're all there, waiting in the infinite imagination that is consciousness. And whichever one you feel is real becomes the one that breathes. That's the doorway we're walking through tonight. You're not here to learn how to make money. You're here to remember that you are already the cause of it. So stop chasing and start assuming. Stop asking and start embodying. Feel it. Feel what it's like to know the bills are paid, the accounts are full, the opportunities never stop. Not in a distant future, but now. And notice how the air feels different. Notice how your body reacts, the small surge of relief, the quiet power. That's the frequency of abundance. It was never out there, it was always here. Tonight, you've crossed the invisible line from wanting wealth to being it. And once you cross it, you can't go back. You've begun to sense it. That subtle hum beneath every choice, every word, every heartbeat. It's not the sound of money. It's the vibration of state, the invisible architecture that builds your world long before you touch it. You used to believe life was random, that success was luck dressed in discipline. But look closer. Nothing in your life has ever happened by accident. Every event, every meeting, every bill, every dollar, all of it fits the blueprint of the state you were occupying. You think you earn money with effort, but money only obeys one master: assumption. You assume scarcity, and the world rushes to prove you right. You assume abundance, and the same world rearranges to serve you. It's not about working harder, it's about feeling different. Close your eyes for a moment and remember the last time you felt desperate about money. That tightness in your chest, that invisible weight pressing behind your eyes, the way you couldn't even breathe freely. Now remember a moment, even a small one, when you felt safe, when you weren't thinking about lack, when you simply knew things would work out. That difference you just felt, that's the blueprint shifting. The invisible architecture of wealth is built not from plans, but from emotional certainty. Every thought you repeat becomes a beam, every feeling a wall, every assumption a foundation. You've been constructing your financial reality brick by brick without realizing it. When you say, "I always struggle with money," you lay another stone of struggle. When you whisper, "I'm getting closer," you're still building distance. But when you declare, "I am wealthy now," you start building presence, the only place manifestation can exist. You can't create wealth tomorrow. You can only create it now, because tomorrow doesn't exist except as a picture drawn by today's emotions. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption." Most people miss the second half, persistence. They feel rich for a moment, then slip back into fear the next. They keep redesigning the blueprint halfway through construction. But when you persist, when you keep returning to the feeling of completion, the structure becomes stable. Reality has no choice but to decorate itself to match. Think about how a house is built. Before you ever see the walls, there's an invisible framework holding it all together. You don't question it. You trust it will become solid. That's how manifestation works. The framework is emotional conviction. The outer walls are the physical events that follow. You don't rush the builder. You trust the design. In the same way, you must trust the design of your inner state. Every morning when you wake, you choose a house to live in, the house of lack or the house of abundance. You move through its rooms all day, touching its walls with your words, breathing its air with your thoughts. And every night before sleep, you return home to the one you've built most consistently. So ask yourself now, which one have you been living in? You might say, "But I can't just feel rich when my bank account is empty." And that's the trap. Because you're waiting for the outer to convince the inner, but the law works in reverse. The inner convinces the outer. You can start small. Notice every symbol of abundance. A meal, a warm shower, a kind gesture, sunlight through a window. Each time you recognize it, you reinforce the architecture of plenty. Each acknowledgement adds another beam to your invisible mansion. Soon, the structure becomes so solid that no external condition can shake it. People will call you lucky. They'll ask, "How did it happen so fast?" And you'll smile because you'll know it didn't happen fast. It happened the moment you changed houses. Wealth doesn't arrive, it unfolds. It's the unveiling of what was always there, waiting for permission to appear. Right now, you are redrawing the blueprint. You are deleting years of self-doubt and replacing them with quiet authority. You are declaring, "I am the architect," and the universe, like a loyal builder, is already at work behind the scenes. So tonight, before you sleep, walk through the house of abundance in your mind. Run your fingers along its walls. See the numbers in your accounts. Hear the soft hum of peace that wealth brings. Stay there until you drift into dreams, because the longer you live in that invisible house, the faster the outer one will rise around you. This is the invisible architecture of wealth, and you've already started building. You've spent most of your life believing that the harder you work, the more you deserve. You were taught to fight for what you want, to hustle, to grind, and sometimes it worked, for a while, until the exhaustion came. The burnout, the silent panic at night, that feeling that no matter how much you do, it's never enough. You've worn effort like armor, proud, determined, relentless. But deep inside, something has always whispered, it shouldn't be this hard. And that whisper is right, because effort is the language of fear. Energy is the language of faith. When you're ruled by effort, you try to force the world to bend. When you're guided by energy, the world bends because you already know it will. You don't chase, you attract, you don't push, you allow. And yet, even now, your logical mind rebels. It says, if I stop trying, everything will collapse. But look around. Has all that trying really made you free? No. It made you tired. Effort is a cage disguised as progress. It keeps you running on the same track, mistaking motion for movement. But when you shift from effort to energy, something miraculous happens. You begin to move without resistance. You wake up with clarity, not pressure. You do less, but every action has precision, almost divine timing. People call it flow. Neville called it living in the end. Because when you live in the end, the state where your wish is already fulfilled, every action you take comes from completion, not from need. Think about that. How different would your choices be if you weren't trying to get rich, but were simply acting as someone who already is? You'd make bolder moves. You'd speak differently. You'd stop apologizing for wanting more, and life would respond, not to your effort, but to your energy. Because energy carries authority, effort carries doubt. The world doesn't obey struggle, it mirrors certainty. Neville once said, "To live in the end is to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your nature." That's what this chapter is about, turning that feeling into your nature. So let's test something. Right now, imagine your financial breakthrough has already happened. It's done. You wake up, check your phone, and the message is there. The deal, the payment, the opportunity. It's real. Feel the rush in your chest, the relief, the stillness that comes after victory. Stay there. Don't analyze it. Feel it. That's energy. Effort would say, how do I make that happen? Energy says, I know it already has. Effort focuses on time. Energy collapses it because energy doesn't move linearly. It moves like light, instant, whole, complete. You can't force it. You can only match it. That's why you'll often notice the strangest thing. When you finally let go, everything starts moving. When you stop needing the outcome finds you. When you stop worrying about money, money appears. That's not superstition, it's resonance. Your dominant vibration, the emotional tone you carry daily, tells life what to deliver next. And right now, as you begin to shift from effort to energy, that tone is changing. You'll start to notice it in small ways first. A bill gets paid unexpectedly. A client returns. A door opens where there was none. And it will feel random. But it isn't. It's the bridge of incidents rearranging itself around your new state. This is why you must be still inside. Because if you panic at the first sign of delay, you rebuild the cage of effort all over again. Remember, energy does not beg. It commands quietly. You don't need to shout to the universe. You whisper to yourself with conviction. It's done. It's mine. It's normal for me to live in wealth. And then you act from that knowing, not forced, but guided, not hurried, but certain. This is the secret every truly wealthy person lives by. They don't work harder. They work lighter. They don't chase opportunity. They radiate such clarity that opportunity finds them. That's the shift you're making now, from effort to energy, from control to confidence, from strain to flow. And once you cross that line, you can't go back, because after you've felt what it's like to move through life as if the outcome is guaranteed, the grind feels unnatural. You stop competing. You start creating, you stop striving, you start receiving. And that's when life begins to look like magic, not because something external changed, but because you stopped fighting reality and started designing it. So tonight, remind yourself before you sleep, I no longer chase, I align. I no longer force, I flow. I no longer wait, I am. This is how the shift happens. Quietly, softly, powerfully, until one day you wake up and realize the wealth you once chased is now your normal. Because the moment you stop working for it, you become the energy it answers to. At first, nothing looks different. You wake up the same streets, the same bills, the same world. But something feels altered. There's a quiet hum under everything, a new frequency. You don't fully understand it, yet you can't deny it's there. The air feels charged. People respond differently. Things start to line up too perfectly to be random. You begin to realize that the shift you made inside, that subtle decision to feel wealthy, has already begun building a bridge, an invisible bridge. It doesn't appear all at once. It reveals itself one plank at a time, step by step, leading you exactly where you're meant to go. Neville Goddard called it the bridge of incidents. It's the divine choreography that carries you from your current state to the fulfillment of your assumption. You can't see the whole path, only the next few steps, and that's the test. You've asked for wealth, for freedom, for overflow. But to reach it, you must cross a bridge that appears only as you walk. Most people never cross. They wait to see the full structure before they take the first step, but faith doesn't work that way. Faith is movement in the dark. You take one step, and then the next piece of the bridge materializes beneath your feet. Maybe it comes as a sudden idea, a name that flashes in your mind, a strange coincidence, an email, a call, an opportunity that feels out of nowhere. It's not chance, it's response. Reality is responding to your new vibration, and yet your old self still tries to interfere. It whispers, what if this is wrong? What if it fails? But now you know better. You know that doubt is only the echo of an old state dying. So you keep walking. You start noticing the small shifts first. A conversation that used to drain you now inspires you. An unexpected refund appears. Someone mentions your name in the right room. At first, these moments feel small, too small to mean anything. But you sense the rhythm forming. Something is pulling you forward. It's subtle but powerful, like a tide. You realize you're not chasing outcomes anymore. You're following alignment. And that's when the bridge starts to light up. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with knowing. Knowing that you are being led. Not randomly, but precisely. Because your imagination is not a fantasy factory, it's a map maker. Every time you assume the feeling of wealth, you draw another section of the bridge. Every time you doubt, you pause the construction. But the moment you return to certainty, the work resumes, invisible workers laying beams in silence. That's how life builds miracles, quietly. And sometimes before the bridge fully appears, things may collapse, plans may fail, relationships may shift, money may seem to disappear. Don't panic. That's not destruction, that's rearrangement. To bring you to the version of yourself who already has it, life must sometimes remove what doesn't belong. The collapse is the clearing. The space between planks is faith's invitation. Do you trust what you can't see? And if you can answer yes, even once, the bridge extends again. You don't have to run. You just keep moving in rhythm with the unseen. Each step becomes lighter. You stop doubting. You start smiling at the coincidences. You start expecting them. Someone cancels a meeting and it leads to a better one. A rejection redirects you to your breakthrough. What once looked like bad luck now looks like perfect design. You begin to understand what wealth truly is. Not just money, but divine orchestration. Money is only one of the languages life speaks when it wants to show you who you've become. Because the bridge doesn't just connect 2 points in space, it connects 2 versions of you. The one who begged for freedom and the one who walks in it. Every step changes you. Every test refines you. Every delay trains your nervous system to hold the frequency of wealth. And then suddenly one morning, it happens. Something shifts so naturally that you almost miss it. The transfer clears. The opportunity lands. The problem resolves itself. and it feels normal. That's when you realize you've crossed the bridge. Not because life finally gave you what you wanted, but because you stopped standing on the side of lack. You didn't manifest money, you manifested alignment. And money was simply the proof. The bridge that appeared from nowhere was never built by chance. It was built by your conviction. Every thought, every assumption, every "it's already done" was a step. And the moment you walked across, you became the person you were always meant to be. And yet, the journey isn't over, because on the other side of this bridge, a new one is already waiting. You start to notice them when you least expect it. At first, they're subtle, so subtle that your old self tries to explain them away. A small refund, a random compliment about your confidence, an opportunity that seems to appear out of thin air. Coincidence, you tell yourself, just chance. But then there's another, and another. The world starts echoing your new vibration, quietly at first, then louder. Things begin to align so perfectly that logic can't keep up. And in that moment, you realize it's happening. You've entered the state of manifestation, the space where imagination begins to solidify into fact. Yet as soon as the signs appear, the mind starts its oldest trick. Don't get your hopes up. What if it all disappears? You're just imagining things. And that's the final test. Because the law always gives you evidence before fulfillment, not to tease you, but to see if you'll recognize your own reflection. The signs are not there to convince you. They're there to measure your faith. Every time you dismiss one, you delay the bridge. Every time you honor one, you quicken the manifestation. It's the subtle rhythm of creation, belief, echo, realization. You see, when you first assumed wealth, the world didn't change, you did. But now, reality is catching up to your new frequency. And that's why everything feels slightly surreal, like walking through a dream that's learning to become solid. You look around and things feel lighter. Colors seem brighter. People smile more. And even in ordinary moments, you sense a pulse of synchronicity. You're not chasing anything anymore. You're observing how everything chases you. But beware, this is where most people lose the magic. Because as soon as the first signs appear, they begin to check reality again. They look for proof, constantly. They measure, analyze, compare. And by doing that, they step back into lack, back into the version of themselves that doubts the unseen. You can't measure a seed by digging it up every morning. You water it, you trust it. You know it's growing, even when you can't see it. So now, when signs appear, you'll do something different. You'll smile, you'll whisper, "I see you." And you'll keep walking. Because the moment you start to trust those early signals, they multiply. A friend calls with a connection. An idea strikes you at midnight and turns out to be gold. Money flows from unexpected places. And each time, your confidence grows, not arrogance but calm certainty. Because deep down, you already knew this would happen. You remember Neville's words. Signs follow. They do not precede. You never needed the world to prove anything. It's merely mirroring what you've decided to feel. Now something fascinating begins to happen. The signs aren't just about money anymore. They're about identity. You catch yourself speaking differently. "I can," instead of "I hope." You make choices from power, not fear. You notice you no longer explain your dreams to people who don't believe. That's when you realize you've stopped trying to convince the world because you've convinced yourself. The shift is complete when you stop looking for miracles and start expecting them. Because expectation is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's saying, "This is normal for me now." And the universe listens to normal more than it listens to need. You'll notice people treating you differently, not because they've changed, but because your energy has. They respond to the silent confidence that wealth always carries. They sense something you can't fake. Self-certainty. The first signs were small. Now they're undeniable. A sudden breakthrough, a surprising opportunity, a financial shift that seems impossible to explain. It almost feels unfair, how fast things move once you stop doubting. But it's not unfair, it's lawful. Because once you've changed state, reality doesn't need time. It only needs permission, and you've already given it. This is the point where faith becomes knowledge, where assumption becomes evidence, where the invisible finally touches the visible, and still, you'll have one last temptation, to take credit for it, to think, I did this. But you didn't do anything. You allowed. You let the law work through you instead of fighting against it. You became the vessel, not the source. And that humility is what keeps the flow alive. So now, when another sign appears, and it will, don't celebrate with disbelief. Celebrate with recognition, because what you call a sign is simply your new self introducing itself to the old one. And soon, the old one will vanish completely. This is the point of no return. The moment when the universe can no longer treat you as poor, desperate, or uncertain, because your vibration refuses to match those frequencies anymore. From here, everything accelerates. Opportunities multiply, doors unlock, people appear who speak the same language, abundance, possibility, purpose. And every time something aligns perfectly, you'll know, this is me, this is my reflection, this is the law, working flawlessly as it always has. The signs can't be ignored anymore, because they're no longer signs, they're confirmations. There comes a moment when the noise finally fades. The fear, the chase, the constant need to prove something. All of it begins to dissolve. You wake up one morning and realize that you are no longer trying. You're simply being. You're not running toward wealth anymore. You're standing in it. You can feel it in the rhythm of your breath, in the way you walk, in the way you speak. And that right there is what the wealthy understand long before the rest of the world does. It isn't money that makes them confident. It's confidence that makes them magnetic to money. It's a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that doesn't shout but moves mountains in silence. You start to notice it in your own life. You walk into a room and people look up. You say less, but your presence speaks louder. You don't rush because you already know everything you need will come at the perfect time. You've stopped fighting time. You've stopped begging for proof. You've stopped living from not enough. Because now you've learned the truth. Abundance has nothing to do with what you have and everything to do with what you embody. When you were trapped in the chase, you thought money was freedom. But now you see that freedom came first. Money only followed its scent. There's something magnetic about a person who no longer doubts. Something almost supernatural. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. The silent confidence of someone who trusts the unseen more than the visible. You used to think wealth meant control. Now you understand it means surrender, because the one who trusts doesn't need to force outcomes. They know the law is already working in their favor. That's why truly wealthy people can move through chaos and still radiate peace. They've mastered the art of inner stillness in motion. The world may shake around them, but their state doesn't. And because their state doesn't, their reality stays anchored. You are learning to live from that same stillness. To carry wealth, not as a number, but as a frequency that follows you everywhere. You notice it in small moments. When someone complains about money, you feel no need to join in. When an unexpected expense appears, you stay calm, knowing that something greater is already arranging its balance. You used to panic in those moments. Now you smile because you know the game. You know that every apparent problem is just an illusion, a temporary reflection that hasn't caught up to your new identity yet. And the moment you stay unmoved, it dissolves. You've stopped reacting. You've started creating. That's the silent confidence. The world can no longer manipulate you through fear because you no longer live in that vibration. You are no longer seduced by urgency. You no longer rush decisions out of lack. You move when you feel guided, not pressured. That's why opportunities come to you now. They can sense your energy. You're not chasing them away with desperation. You're calling them home with ease. And the more you embody this state, the faster life rearranges itself to match it. Because everything, absolutely everything, is responding to your emotional tone. The silent confidence of the wealthy is not a performance. It's a natural side effect of knowing that everything is consciousness. Neville said, "Be still and know that you are God." That's what this chapter is. That stillness, that knowing. You've become untouchable, not because you resist, but because you no longer react. The world can send storms, but you remain centered, not by willpower, but by remembrance. You remember who you are, the source, the cause, the imagination itself. And when you live from that truth, life can only mirror it. You start noticing how people begin to ask for your advice. They feel your peace and want to know your secret. But you can't really explain it, can you? Because it's not something you do. It's something you are. That's the irony of this journey. You spend years chasing wealth, only to discover it was your calm that created it all along. Now you understand why Neville called feeling the secret. Because wealth, success, love, they're not achieved by strategy, but by identity, and you've stepped fully into yours. You are not waiting for money. Money is waiting for you. You are not chasing success. Success is drawn to your stillness. You don't need to talk about abundance anymore. You carry it, you are it, and the deeper that realization settles, the quieter you become. Because silence, true silence, is not emptiness, it's power perfectly contained. This is the silent confidence of the wealthy. It's not a posture, it's not a performance, it's presence. And presence is everything. From this point on, you'll move through life differently. You'll make decisions from ease, not fear. You'll spend as a creator, not a consumer. You'll walk as one who already owns the world within, because that's who you are now. The millionaire who no longer chases, the one who commands without speaking, the one whose silence makes reality rearrange itself. There comes a point on this path where the journey turns back on itself, where everything you've been seeking, chasing, imagining, suddenly stops feeling external. And in that silence, you realize it was never out there. It was always you. You thought you were learning how to attract money, but what you were really learning was how to remember who creates it. Every desire you've ever had was life's way of reminding you of your own power. The moment you wanted more, the universe wasn't teasing you. It was whispering, "Look within. The seed is already planted." You've walked through doubt, through impatience, through the illusion of effort. You've felt what it's like to chase and what it's like to surrender. You've crossed invisible bridges, trusted unseen steps, and finally arrived at the place beyond needing proof. And now, standing here, you can feel the truth pulsing quietly beneath everything. You are the source. Not the source of paper or numbers, but of value, of flow, of creation itself. When you close your eyes and imagine abundance, it's not a request. It's a command whispered in the language of certainty, because creation listens to emotion, not words. It responds to identity, not effort. You no longer need to convince anything outside you, because nothing outside you exists apart from you. You are consciousness, and consciousness is the only substance reality is made of. Neville said, "You are all imagination, and God is your own wonderful human imagination." That's the revelation that turns your entire world inside out. You were never the beggar at the gates of heaven. You were the builder of the gates, the one who decides when they open. And that realization changes everything. Money stops feeling like an achievement. It becomes a mirror, one that reflects your state with absolute precision. If you feel lack, it withdraws. If you feel abundance, it floods in, not as a reward, but as resonance. Now you understand why everything you've learned before seemed to fail. You were trying to change the reflection instead of the face. You were polishing the mirror, when all along you were meant to look into it and remember who you are. The source, the cause, the origin of every event that follows. It's humbling at first, because this realization strips away every excuse. You can no longer blame circumstances, timing, or luck. You can only return inward again and again to the place where imagination breathes reality into being. But it's also liberating, because you realize there was never any limit to begin with. When you imagine from the end, you're not pretending. You're programming. You're impressing the infinite with a new design, and life, faithful, obedient, and exact, rushes to express it. You start to see the proof everywhere, not just in your bank account, but in the calmness of your body, in the gentleness of your thoughts, in the way every situation seems to bend toward your peace. You are not reacting to life anymore. Life is reacting to you. You are not a student of manifestation now. You are its embodiment. And when you speak, the universe doesn't hesitate. Because it knows your voice. It recognizes its creator. You've become the one who no longer asks, "Will this work?" You've become the one who simply decides. And that decision is the only act of creation that ever existed. Everything else, planning, wishing, visualizing, are just the ripples that follow that choice. Now look around your life and notice the subtle perfection. Notice how every step, even the painful ones, led you here, to remembrance. Nothing was wasted. Not one struggle, not one delay. Every experience was a teacher guiding you back to the source within. And that source is infinite. It cannot run out. It cannot fail. It cannot be taken from you, because it is you. From this moment on, you'll begin to live differently. You'll spend as a creator, not a survivor. You'll plan from completion, not fear. You'll meet every challenge with calm curiosity, knowing that everything is simply consciousness reorganizing itself. You'll stop chasing signs and start creating them. You'll stop asking when and start saying now. This is the highest state, to walk through life as the source, yet remain humble enough to listen to the silence that created it all. Because even now, as wealth flows, as opportunities multiply, you'll remember that the real treasure was never the things. It was the awareness, the peace, the power to choose. And as you walk forward from this chapter, you'll feel something sacred awakening inside you. A kind of steady radiance that doesn't fade. You've become the quiet center of your universe, the calm eye within every storm, the still point from which infinite riches unfold. And now, the game is simple. Whatever you assume to be true, will be. That's it. That's the law. You don't have to chase it, prove it, or defend it. You only have to live it, because from this moment on, you no longer imagine wealth. You generate it. You no longer hope for abundance. You embody it. You no longer pray for miracles. You create them by existing. You are the source, and you always were. And now, you've reached the quiet after the storm. Not the end, but the beginning of a new rhythm. One you no longer need to chase because it beats inside you. Take a moment. Breathe. Look at how far you've come. You began this journey believing that wealth was something distant, a mountain you had to climb, a prize you had to win, a secret you had to decode. But now, you know the truth. It was never a secret. It was never hidden. It was only waiting for you to remember. Remember that imagination is not fantasy, it's creation. That what you assume, you become. That what you persist in feeling, reality must mirror. You've walked through the illusion of effort, through the bridges that appeared from nowhere, through the doubts, the signs, the proofs. And now you stand where all masters stand, in the knowing. The knowing that the law always delivers. Not sometimes. Not when you're worthy enough. Not when you finally figure out the how. Always. Because the law is impersonal. It doesn't judge, it doesn't delay, it simply responds to your dominant assumption, the story you tell yourself when no one is listening. So now, what story will you choose to tell? Because you've seen what happens when you assume lack. You've lived what happens when you assume fear. But tonight, you've also witnessed what happens when you assume wealth, peace, certainty, and faith. Reality bends. It has no choice. You are the author and the audience, the dreamer and the dream. You have felt the energy shift from effort to flow, from panic to peace, from wanting to being. You have crossed bridges that logic couldn't explain and watched as the universe rearranged itself around your conviction. And now, as you leave this space and return to your everyday life, you'll notice that nothing will ever feel the same again, because you've changed frequency. And the world has no choice but to follow. You will see proof everywhere, in conversations, in timing, in unexpected opportunities. And when they come, don't be surprised. Smile. Whisper, of course. Because this is how reality says, I heard you. You will no longer pray from need. You will declare from knowing. You will no longer chase. You will attract effortlessly. You will no longer hope. You will expect. And that expectation is the vibration of the wealthy, calm, certain, unmoved. You've learned that wealth isn't about accumulation, it's about awareness. It's not about working for money, it's about letting money work for your state. And the more you embody that stillness, the more the world rearranges itself to match your peace. Remember this always. You are not creating something new. You are selecting a reality that already exists. There are infinite versions of you in the field of imagination. But the one that becomes visible is the one you feel as real. So tonight, when you close your eyes, don't pray for money, don't beg for opportunity, don't wish for luck. Assume the end. See yourself already free, already abundant, already whole. Feel it until the feeling becomes so real that the outer world has no choice but to catch up. And it will. It always does. Because the law never fails. Neville said, to desire a state is to have it. And now you understand what that truly means. Desire is not lack. It's creation in motion. So claim it. Own it. Live it. Every thought, every word, every feeling from this moment forward is a seed, and the world you wake up to tomorrow will be the garden you planted tonight. So choose wisely, choose boldly, choose wealth, choose freedom, choose certainty, choose yourself, because you are the source, and the source never runs dry. If this journey spoke to something deep within you, if you felt the shift, even for a moment, don't let it fade when the screen goes dark. Subscribe, because each message here will take you deeper into wealth, into awareness, into mastery. Leave a comment that declares your new state. Say it with conviction, I live from abundance now. And share this with someone who's ready to awaken, someone still chasing what they were born to create. Because when one person remembers the law, it echoes through everyone around them. And that's how the world changes. One awakened imagination at a time. So, as you step into tomorrow, carry this truth quietly in your mind. You will become a millionaire faster than you think, not because you're lucky, but because you've stopped waiting. You've stopped asking, you've started assuming. And the moment you do, the law delivers, every single time.